Hello, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this awesome session that I gotta admit I'm pretty excited about for a couple reasons. This feels like an old reunion, James, and
Totally.
right, and Megan, new friends. Like as soon as we connected, I was like, Megan's my BFF. I'm gonna have to go over to Michigan and hang out
Love
on the
it.
lake.
Yes.
Um, but for you folks out there, we are focused today on teaching and speaking the best practices, providing insights around how to align pre-sales and product marketing for maximum impact. And these are stakeholders that I think, at least in the past, before movements that, for example, James, you started with Pre-Sales Collective,
Yep.
pre-sales and product marketing, I think, have been a role or a stakeholder that maybe didn't really get as much shine as they should have. And luckily, that's something that's really standing out. I can't tell you how every day since I'm in this category now, I'm seeing stuff around product marketing and the new roles and just people getting hired for this role. And I think there's this strong effort to also kind of formalize the role in a little more granularity and deal with some of the issues that we've seen here in the past. So I'm excited about that. For the folks out there, if you do have any questions, comments, feedback, if you don't like my shirt or anything at all, go ahead and comment. You're watching this probably on LinkedIn, and you can see the comment wall on the interface. Hopefully, you're probably seeing this either on Megan, the Asset Mule, or James's feed. So yeah, go ahead and comment. We will see the comments and then address them as soon as possible, maybe in the moment. So without further ado, why don't we go around the horn quickly and introduce ourselves. James, if you can kick us off.
Yeah. Well, George, thanks for having me. As folks may or may not know, I'm the previous co-founder of Presales Collective. And when, George, you were at Reprise, you guys were a sponsor. So we've been working together, doing podcasts, webinars, all kind of things for a couple of years. So it's great to see us doing it now with TestBox and Asset Mule. And so for those who don't know, I'm James Kaikis. I'm the head of Go-To-Market here at TestBox. Presales Collective, we actually partner with a lot of the demo automation space. I like to say that, I was there when a lot of these companies formed. So I know the space really, really well. And after I left PSC and wanted to get back into tech, it made a lot of sense to go into the demo automation space. And I knew of TestBox because I'm an LP and go-to-market fund. And after TestBox made a pivot from a marketplace to demo automation, I learned how they were solving the problem. And I said, wow, that's the answer. I want to go work there. So decided to join in December to lead all of Go-To-Market. And it's been a lot of fun. And I'm thankful to be here.
Awesome. Megan, my new friend. Again, I'm about to buy a ticket. We're going to hang out with Kid Rock and right, and Romeo. Actually, who knows if he still lives there.
Let's go hang out with Eminem.
All right. Fair enough.
Awesome. But yes, no, I'm Meghan Spork. I lead our product marketing here at TestBox. I've spent the last 10 plus years in the B2B marketing tech world, working at companies like Xylo, Mediafly, and also at Showpad, which is funny enough how I know James. It's where we met. And then we've just kept in touch over the years. I helped him, did some side hustle freelance work with him when he was at Presales Collective. So have been familiar with the solution space for some time through him. And then when he joined TestBox, and as you can see, he's very clearly very passionate about what we're doing here, shared with me how awesome the product is, all about the space and how it's really coming up. It was one of those opportunities that I just had to jump at. So here I am. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. And for the folks out there, I'm George Soto, one of the co-founders here at Asset Mule. Have worked in tech, particularly B2B, for the last 15 years or so. Worked at companies like Twitter, a bunch of startups that you've never heard of, and have started even more startups that you've never heard of. So I'm really excited about this conversation. Let's dive in to kind of a higher level topic. James, why don't you kick us off? Why should pre-sales and product marketing align to begin with?
Yeah, it's, I asked myself this question and reflected back a lot of my career, right? I worked at Salesforce. I was the first SC at a company called Showpad and Revenate. And so I've seen this and lived this for a long time. And the way I think about it, right, is that in my opinion, marketing has always been building out the narrative. And I like to say it's kind of behind the scenes. And what that means is doing a lot internally and doing customer feedback. But it's the salespeople and the sales team that are testing that narrative for customers, right? So while marketers may be validating feedback with some customers or small groups, if you think about the volume of pitches and demos and shares that salespeople will be having of that content, the volume is tremendous, right? And as a solutions engineer, my entire career, I have spent kind of in the middle between both parties. And I like to say that if marketing and product marketing is building out this narrative in this ideal situation, I can see what's actually happening on the ground, right, from the salespeople. And so I need to figure out what's in the middle. When you work with multiple AEs, you start to learn who's pitching, what they're pitching, how they're pitching it, why they're pitching it, but most importantly, how it resonates. And so as an SC, when you're supporting multiple AEs, you're working with the product and sales marketing team, you want to understand, like, what is the answer, right? What is resonating? How do we find the best of the account executives and the best of the marketing team and blend that together? So as an SC, I've always felt like I've been kind of caught in the middle of this. And I used to run with a concept of Presales Collective called Presales at the Center of Influence, right? And it's this amazing concept that, like, you get so much exposure to all these different companies or different aspects of a business that you get noise, and you get to disseminate that to figure out what the reality is. And so in my opinion, the SC is core to understanding what happens behind the scenes, what's resonating with customers, and where reality actually is.
I could not agree with that more. I think SEs and even sellers to a point just have they are boots on the ground. As James said, that the number of at-bats is just so much higher than a marketer is ever going to get. I think even in the best, even with tools like Gong, where you can listen to recordings, like being able to pick up on some of that, like it's the minutia, it's the nuance, and understanding what are those small things that make our buyers tick. That's what matters. And they've got a front row seat to that. And I think are also skilled at figuring that out. For me, I think, product marketers too are, as James said, we're building this narrative. And as much as we try and seek out that customer feedback, that buyer feedback, we're crafting these stories about the value, but at some point they kind of have to be proven. And for me, they're proven oftentimes with that feedback from the SEs. They're seeing, is this working? Is it resonating? Is it good? Or can it just have that little nuance? Is it that little tweak to take something from just okay to amazing? And I think that feedback can really make a difference.
Well, it's, as I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, it's one of the most strategic roles that, sure, we insert a SE or a pre-sales consultant. I know there are a couple of different titles, mid to bottom of the funnel, but the insights, I feel like these stakeholders have so much information that can be shared with product marketing. Well, certainly the rest of the organization, but particularly what product marketing is doing to further impact positioning and messaging, ICP personas. Are we speaking to the right personas? Right. Do we have the right stories? So just some things as y'all were going through this that really stood out. James, I know that you spent a bunch of time at great organizations, like, for example, Salesforce. And you mentioned, like, product marketing is pretty involved in the narratives and these sort of things. Were there any sort of, like, nuances there that stood out? Also, at Showpad, product marketers were kind of focused on the pitch and some high level stuff. Any sort of nuances or takeaways from that? Sort of dynamic?
I've been fortunate to work at a couple early stage startups and a very mature company like Salesforce. And what I saw at Salesforce is, everyone knows Salesforce is known for their narrative and their pitch and their story. And so product marketing was involved in everything that we did, right? The decks, the narratives, the story, the different aspects of the product that we should be talking about it, and how should we be talking about it. And it really was up to the SEs to figure out how to craft that narrative for our audience. So for example, I worked in manufacturing, which was a new vertical that was growing. And so our team had a lot of manufacturing expertise. So we took a lot of what product marketing built for us and just made the tweaks in the story and the narrative to really resonate with our buyers in manufacturing. But if I look at Showpad, right, fast growing startup, right, joined at like a couple $1 million and left at like 75 or 80. That journey was very different. So our product marketing team, had multiple different roles in that 4 years that I was there. But mainly they were focused on the high level and the pitch. And actually, as the SE team and SE leader, I was responsible for everything in the demo narrative and crafting that demo and crafting that talk track for our account executives. So I kind of played that role in that organization. So it is different to see, right, how different companies approach that. But I think you made a comment earlier. Is like because I was early at Showpad, I was subject matter expert. I knew our customers, I knew our segments, I knew our industries. And so I could tweak the pitch unlike, most folks in the organization because I was so close to the ground.
Meghan, I got to say that I hear what James just articulated and said, doesn't that sound so similar to things that we do as product? I say we do just because like I've spoken to so many product marketers over the years now that I feel this strong connection. But it sounds like that insight, right? Positioning, ICP, messaging, etc., is very, very powerful when it relates to what you're doing as a product marketer.
Absolutely. Vital information. And as I said before, it's honing in on that, what's actually working. And I think we'll get into this a little bit, but product marketing has their hands in a lot of different content. So I think if they can get a good source of information and make sure that they're kind of everything that they put out is coming from a place of excellence, is good and includes that minutia and can also get iterated on over time, I think it all just builds. But that input is critical. Because the reality is, me even talking to many customers, but inside the four walls of this room in my own brain is not as powerful as when I combine my forces with our sellers and especially our solutions engineer in particular. Like he's seeing things that make my work so much better.
I've also heard of roles and ran into a couple of folks who have like technical product marketing or technical marketing roles that have some overlap in terms of insights, right? And some of the work that pre-sales folks do. When you think about demos specifically, and we love demos.
Oh,
I still have a very soft spot for demos in general. Shout out to my previous employer, Reprise, who is how James, as James mentioned, how we met. But when you think about, all the sort of positioning, messaging, narrative, all that kind of feedback loop that y'all have referred to, how does that map to demo preparation and creation?
I feel like your demo is one of the best points where you can show that product marketing and like solutions collaboration. I feel like marketers and product marketers hopefully are involved in crafting that narrative, what that sales deck looks like. So kind of laying the foundation for that story. And then for me, it's the demos are then kind of bringing that story to life. What does that actually look like in the product? And I think that's just such an important collaboration piece. And again, it's those SEs that are in the room and having those at bats at that rapid clip that even the best product marketer, I think, would struggle to be able to get that influence in that moment to be able to improve. So I think it kind of opens that door for that feedback loop and that constant iteration, just to continue to sharpen your message, make sure that you're going after the right people and serving them the right value.
And James, is there a specific format that you like? And I know we'll dive a little deeper into the alignment stuff, but any sort of format that you like around being able to collect that information?
I wish I had a good answer for this, but I don't think that I've really figured out like what that answer really is, right? I think the biggest thing for number one is just creating a process or operationalizing feedback. I think that so many companies don't do this and don't do this well, right? They think about these types of exercises as, hey, like this is done. which I'll talk about a bit more because I'm passionate about that concept. But like there just needs to be mechanisms to get that type of feedback and to iterate on that, right? And I think, one of the things that we're talking about, like the demo narrative and the demo story, as an SC, a lot of times there's a curse of knowledge. I know my products better than most people. I like to show the things that I like to show. I like to show the things that matter. And sometimes when you take that, technical product marketer or a product marketer, they can take a step back and be like, all right, what does the buyer, what does it look like and what does it want at scale? But the reality is that so many folks from the SC and AE perspective, want to tell a good story, but are still kind of feature functioning, right? So having that type of role that maybe isn't as in depth with the curse of knowledge on the product, but can understand a high level and help you navigate through the product that will resonate with more folks than not, I think is critical. And how you operationalize that does probably depend on the organization.
Well, let's transition quickly into some misconceptions. I'll kick it off just being kind of an outsider, and just given that I have spoken to probably close to 1,000 product marketers and pre-sales folks over the last couple of years, probably more. But one of the things that I've seen as this misconception, and Megan, maybe you can think about this here in a little bit, but is the idea that PMMs are only working on tactical collateral creation and they're not thinking about strategic things. And frankly, my experience and my research is that that's not necessarily by design all the time. It's kind of like PMMs are getting these requests. Hey, I need a one-pager for this or a deck for that, or, and you're like, well, it's in Dropbox or it's in Drive or whatever. And sales is like, yeah, but it's not personalized enough. I need this image taken out and I need to add this logo and all that. So it feels like the PMM is perceived as this tactical, I don't know what the right word is, but this individual that's only focused on that. And the fact of the matter is that is not the case. You did not get hired just to create, assets, right? Sure, that's part of it. But even beyond that, or before that, I should say, that strategic messaging, positioning, this thought has to be put in place. So that's one of the misconceptions that I've seen time and time again. And I think that it's something that has to start at the leadership level to understand, at the tippy top, right? This is what the product marketing function is going to do at our organization. Yes, these are high priority tasks in getting stuff to sales, but even before that, we can't just be throwing anything. It has to always be based on this strategic work that requires alignment with other stakeholders, like the pre-sales stakeholders, right? So that's my take on one of the big misconceptions that I've seen.
Yes. George, have you been listening to our meetings lately? It feels like you've been a fly on the wall. These are things James and I talk about all the time. I think marketing roles in general, product marketing is no exception. I think can often be seen as workhorses or producers of these things. Very important things, hear me say. But they should be taking a more strategic view. They should be helping shape how we go to market with these products. What is the value we're delivering? Who are we delivering it for? And helping define all of that and then iterating on it over time. But I feel like it's always a priority exercise of how do you make sure that you say, I hear you and this is important, but we also need to spend some time. I've had a lot of leaders call it slowing down to speed up, just taking that beat to do that thoughtful, strategic work, knowing it's going to be a constant iterative process, but slowing down so that you can then create all this beautiful content off of the back of it, but also make sure that you're not getting buried in those requests. I feel like that's a struggle every PMM will.
Oh yeah, and I am a fly in the wall in the or from the perspective, I should say, that I have spoken to so many that I just I feel like a therapist sometimes. So I totally get it. Megan, quick question.
This is why we vibe.
Well, my dad is a therapist, so I kind of grew up with instead of him yelling at me, he'd go,
tell me more.
Tell me more. How do you feel, right? Anyways, then he'd yell at me. But anyways, quick question. You talked about the fact that PMMs don't necessarily need to understand the technical workings of products, but it is important to be able to understand the product's technical aspects as it relates to stories and pains and these sort of things. How do you like find that balance?
I think it's also part of where you sit in the organization too. You need to be able to, I think the solutions folks, they're literally called solutions engineers for a reason. They think like engineers. I think they know how to manipulate product in a way that, I'll be honest, I do not. But I need to understand if they're going to do these things, or if our product works in a way that's different than another, what are the implications of that? So I do think there's an important distinction there of, I don't think you need to get into how necessarily you would do this or all of the pieces involved, but understanding the what and the why, and the impact at the end of the day, I think are the biggest, most important pieces there. And especially I'll say for us here at TestBox is a fairly technical product, and it's made me sharpen some of my chops, and not being afraid to ask, okay, what is the implication of this change or of this thing? So I will say, I think that's one of my other suggestions is like, keep asking, because if you don't know, you probably should. And it only helps us get better at our jobs.
And James, if I may, here's just a consistent theme. The idea that product marketers don't necessarily need to know how it's working, right? And dig into code and these sort of things, but understanding the how and why on top, and how that maps to pains and ROI and et cetera of your tool. But again, who's the stakeholder who does actually know the how and who could dig into code, right? Is that pre-sales professional. And one other thing, I love AEs. I've been an AE rather, and have managed AEs in the past. You'll find that there are certain AEs out there who are more technical, but the fact of the matter is the SE or the pre-sales stakeholder is going to really give you some perspective that even an AE won't know. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. What are the misconceptions that you've seen, given that you've been in that seat?
Yeah, I've definitely been in the seat, and I started to highlight this earlier because I was thinking about this a lot, because it's really important. And I think the idea and the biggest misconception is that pitches, demo narratives, assets are singular exercises. Like, think about it. I can reflect back on my career on seeing like, hey, these are the objectives that we completed this, quarter. And it's like new messaging, checkbox. The reality is that these are not singular exercises. These are ongoing projects that never end. You obviously have to constantly and consistently iterate on these things. Imagine as a business, right? You like lead in with this messaging. Obviously, you can't change the messaging at a macro multiple times and with a big organization, right? It's going to, be messy for the internal team and messy for the external team, but there needs to be tweaks and changes based off the feedback that we talked about previously, right? I always have a saying that like the world is revolving around us, and so we need to evolve with it. And I think so many people think about their work as like singular moments, but everything's evolving, right? And that goes to this whole misconception of like messaging and assets and, whatever it might be, being like, hey, we did this singular asset, we checked the box, we're done with it. That just doesn't work in today's day and age. Like, think about the companies that did this over the last 2 or 3 years and how much SaaS has changed in a couple of years, right? We had, an up, a down, an up, a down, a middle. Like it's changed so much in just a couple of years. And so if you're not constantly evolving and thinking about how we continue to sharpen this, you're already behind.
How do you like wrap or loop TestBox into being able, like from a product perspective? And since I'm initiating this, let's pitch TestBox a little bit here. When you think about the focus and the iterations and these sort of things, and how TestBox brings these stories to life, right, in ways that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Right. The thing about TestBox that's different than anything else in the market is that we are a live solution, right? Like, we are using live products. We're not doing screenshots. We're not doing copies. We're not putting a filter over your product. We're replacing your demo environment, and we are creating the best-in-class story. And so for us, the way we look at this is like, let's take your best customer in, certain segment, certain vertical, and build out a data story that showcases confidence, that builds trust, and you can show it on demos and you can send it out to them in a POC or a sandbox. And that resonates every time. But think about it, like that data story, one, it needs to update every day, which we do, right? Unlike anybody else. But two, it can sometimes be crafted or tweaked or changed to tell a specific narrative. Like Gong is one of our big customers. You know, what I love and respect about Gong is like they are so particular about the data story and the demo story that they need to tell, and how, you know, they've got a million things in their products, but how like one small screen needs to tell a certain story so that they can convey that trust and value to their customer. And I think that's just like what's super interesting about what we're doing versus anything else in the market. And this idea of like, it's not a one-time exercise, right? It has to evolve. Like we've even reorged our business, right, on how we support customers and their ongoing story and their ongoing narrative that they're trying to tell.
Well, and I also think to add to that is when you've got everyone on a level playing field too, when they're using a demo instance that's clean, that has consistent data where you can tell that reliable story, you're able to standardize excellence across that team. And I think that's something that's really never been able to be done before, or you're working with a subpar product. So of course the demo, you've got people that are trying to outdo it. You've got people that are just living with the it's okay product. Like, so when you, I think up your game as far as what you're delivering from a demo environment perspective, I think that changes things as well.
Yeah. And one thing, Megan and James, that I've experienced as a salesperson too many times, and this is even across different sizes of organization, is the instability or lack of reliability of demos and demo environments before. B, the fact that I've never met an engineer on the team who wants to work on demos. Like I just have never, like even pre-sales folks who, God bless you, I love you, and you've helped me make so much money over the years. They don't want to be doing that either, right? Like there's probably some that are more technical in nature, but like being able to not have to start from scratch using tools like TestBox that is just productized to be able to map to your day-to-day workflow and to the things that matter the most, like focus on actually making it matter and resonate and not having to support this environment.
Yeah, George, I mean, I can tell you the number of nights, well, I can't tell you the number of nights that I have stayed up late building custom demos, building custom POCs, spending all kind of time behind the scenes doing admin work just to have a meeting go awry, right? Like we even have done our own data on our own POCs because we've got a one-click POC. It's anywhere between 26 and like 32% of people never even open up the POC. So imagine that you've just spent hours getting something up and running and no one even logs in. Like that sucks, right? But that's the reality of a lot of businesses. And if you think about the compression that has happened in tech right now and the ratios of AEs to SEs, like you don't have as many SEs to work on things. And if you're selling transactional deals and your ASPs and ACVs are low, it doesn't make sense to have this expensive SE resource involved. And so, you know, as an SE, I wish I could spend 90% of my time talking to customers and being a deal strategist and being a co-pilot. But I think that the nature of where, you know, demo environments are, the fact that we're like in 2024 still talking about demo environments and maintenance being a thing, should be a thing of the past, right? And so obviously very passionate about this, but as I think about like, you know, product marketing, and I think about my time, and I think about the SE's time and the salespeople's time, like time is money and every day matters, right? And so like we just got to figure out ways to make these flywheels more consistent, more impactful, and be able to take, you know, feedback from the field and incorporate it into what we do. Because, you know, last point I'll make on this, I've been very passionate about this for a long time, is like what I think salespeople and SEs have forgotten is that every interaction matters. I think we go like so laissez-faire into conversations like, oh yeah, like it matters. You've got 1 or 2 opportunities to make an impact. And if you don't, you've lost the deal, even if you've got the best product, even if you've got the best experience, and that matters. And so I want to figure out all the ways that I can be prepared for those conversations. I can be enabled for those conversations, and I can maximize the interaction that I have with the customer each and every time on a call.
Yeah. I wanted to add something, a couple things real quick to that. First of all, thank you and amen, right? First thing,
about this one.
we should have like a gospel sound, like music or something. Couple things. So the first thing is that I think that is even more relevant. The point on maximizing every touch point when speaking to go-to-market professionals, right? Sure. Like maybe you can get away with like subpar sometimes customer experiences when you're selling to like, I don't know, another department. I'm not going to poo-poo on any other departments because we all need great experiences. But folks who are like tasked every day with putting out externally facing customer experiences, I think have a different expectation. So that's, that's one thing I wanted to mention. The other thing that you mentioned, which really hit home for me, I was about to cry a little bit, was this, that you spent hours, days, nights, sleepless nights, etc., putting together demos only for them, or POCs only for them not to be accessed or consumed or given any attention. And I think this is a real issue that is specific to our go-to-market teams and us as go-to-market professionals who are actually doing this. And this is something you see in other types of assets, right? So like, what do you end up doing? And for the folks out there, if you have this old school cumbersome way of doing demos or content in our world, right, or other sales assets, what ends up happening? Well, only the tier ones get a good experience, right? Because you're like sitting there, and this is actually subconscious at times, because you're like, as a salesperson, as a SE, as a product marketer, like, I'm not gonna stay up all night for everybody, right? Because half of them are not gonna look at it anyways. But so I get that, like, it's very human of us, right? Like we get it. It's not illogical, irrational, but at the same time, we want to provide great customer experiences and an equal playing field in terms of customer experiences to every prospect, right? So how do we do that? Well, I think that tools like TestBox, like Asset Mule, are part of the story and the values that we can actually scale great customer experiences so everyone gets a personalized demo, right? Everyone gets a personalized asset that's specific to them.
Yeah, I love the passion there too. So, I think, the TestBox team has to hear me talk about this stuff all the time, right? And I feel like we have just not to get too far away from our main topics, right? But like, we have just forgotten in the last like golden era of SaaS, like who actually matters, and it's the customer. And so, like, we've built all these, roles and functions that have very singular responsibilities. We have all these handoffs within an organization, and it creates creates a very disparate and like rocky experience for these customers, whether they're big customers or small ones. And I think like even this whole item of like misconceptions of product marketing and solutions, like the biggest thing that I want to stress is like, this is all a team sport. I feel like the last 10 years, because we've had such growth, we've had so many technologies enter into the space, we've like built these silos that justify our existence within organizations, and they all need to, tear down, right? Like, we need to rethink like what's in the best interest of the customer. And I think like utilizing solutions engineering, utilizing salespeople, utilizing product marketing to craft, to tell, and to deliver the best experience and story that builds trust is critically important, right? So, my whole thing is like, whether it's me as the SC or Megan as product marketer or our VP of sales, like, we all work together in the best interest of delivering a great customer experience. And I think that like what has gotten us here in SaaS is not going to get us there in this next wave. And so we just have to rethink how these teams work together, how these organizations rally around feedback, how we make it constant and consistent iteration that is always sharpening the sword.
Yeah. Well, folks, before we dive into some tactical day-to-day stuff that you can implement to better align pre-sales and product marketing, just wanted to remind you, if you do have any questions, you're probably watching this on LinkedIn, go ahead and post your questions, comments. You literally have some of the most talented product marketers, pre-sales leaders, pre-sales minds go-to-market minds here to pick their brains from. So, and also our buddy here, Arthur, just joined. He wanted to say hi. He says that alignment between sales and marketing is super huge. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you so much. Thank you, Arthur.
Great commitment.
Yes, he was very upset about the fact that we don't treat all customers equal. And I told him it's bandwidth and resources. But anyways, I think it's okay. But again, folks, if you are curious, want to dive into certain areas, go ahead and comment. But let's transition into the how, right? So we've talked a little bit about, strategy and some of the misconceptions and why it's important. But now let's dive into how. And Meghan, from your perspective, how should pre-sales partner with product marketing from a tactical perspective? And if you could provide one actionable tip that folks can be like, I'm going to implement that now, what would that be?
Go collaborate on content. I promise you, your product marketer, even if they're a little prickly, they want to hear it. They need to hear it. And I think that's the reality. And I think also coming at it with this lens of iteration, I think not all product marketers, not all marketers in general, I think take that view of your sales decks, your demos, everything needing to be an iterative process and ongoing over time. But I think if you can find a way and a safe way to create that feedback loop, you're going to open up a huge and very important channel. And I also promise that there will be insights that flow the other way too, of things that product marketer is seeing or things that they want to test out, that I think there'll be a great partnership there. But go find ways to collaborate on content. And I promise you will go make some product marketing friends. And
any sort of tips that you would give both stakeholders on actually getting this done? Like, is it like, create a Slack channel or DM that's called War Room and be like, y'all, like, we're going to do it on this day because I already checked your schedules and you don't have me, like, how can we like get them to actually move?
Yes, I will say, I think one of the biggest things that's helped me is like, just schedule the time. Even if you cancel that meeting because you guys don't have anything to bring to the table, that's okay, but hold time for it. I think that's a big one. And also I think it's also important to remember that it's all in pursuit of serving excellence to the customer. And I think I know that there can be territorial issues and people can be a little prickly, especially about feedback. Feedback is a gift, but I think we don't always act like that. But I do think it's important to what James said earlier. If you as a go-to-market team can be aligned on like your North Star being, how do you serve excellence to your customers and deliver on those customer experiences? I think that competition or that prickliness can be transformed into, how do we help each other up our game and how do we up our game together? And I think that's critically important.
Yeah. And that sort of lends itself to maybe another session we'll do on like building the rapport and connections between humans that happen to be in go-to-market teams, because at the end of the day, we need to care about each other. Right. But James, from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I was like sitting here head nodding on most of the things that Meghan said, right? Like tactically what we've done in our business, Meghan has done an amazing job internally putting together that time on the calendar, right? We've got a bi-weekly meeting with the field where Meghan gets feedback. She presents things. She gets their perspective on it. And I've literally heard our salespeople say Meghan is like the first marketer that they've ever worked with that has taken feedback from the sales team and incorporated it in, right? As excited I am about that, I hope that's not true, right? I hope that more folks are taking feedback from their salespeople. But the fact that, our sales team said that about Meghan, it just proves that like, this is a two-way street, right? The fiefdoms of like, this is my project, I'm the owner, what I say goes, it just doesn't really work, right? Again, we have to rally around the customer and what's in the best interest of the customer. And so I think, again, creating that feedback loop where SEs and sales are sharing insight from the field. I like the meeting, right? Because I think the meeting is a very formal conversation where it's like, I ask you questions, I'm doing discovery of the sales team, I present you something, I get feedback on it, so that when Meghan launches something live, we've already built some rapport. We've already got trust. The teams already feel like they've given their input. So we know it's going to be utilized. And, you know, I think this is where I see trust fall apart in most organizations is like, as I kind of mentioned in some of my other, you know, comments today, is like marketing will go and build something and say, hey, sales, go do this, and then not take any feedback and not make the changes and iterations. And I've worked for organizations where the sales team didn't even utilize most of the marketing decks and most of the marketing collateral. And they just created their own Frankenstein content because marketing wasn't listening. So you've got to get the win. So if there's any product marketer listening right there, or even SC, like go and get a small group of people together on something that you're working on, get some feedback, incorporate the feedback, and show the win, right? Show the win. That's how you build trust internally.
And you know, that trust piece that you mentioned in the utilization, James, that you mentioned of assets, right? Like particularly demos, right? If folks are not using these assets, it's going to be it's going to be detrimental, right, to your sales motion.
Totally.
Any tips that you would give, and maybe Megan, you can, you know, I know we didn't talk about this particular sort of question, but I just find it so important to be able to give tips to folks out there around helping your team understand why it's so important to be able to use these assets and the implications of not.
Yeah. If I can actually take this first, Megan, right? I'll give like a very tactile example, right? So let's just say Megan created an asset, right? And Megan worked on something and she presented it to the team and it, you know, didn't go well, right? She's then got to go back and work on that asset and redo that asset to be able to deliver it to the team. That takes away time, energy, and effort from other things that she has on her list. I think it's so interesting that people think time is like this resource that everyone just has and can do all these things, right? If you think about everything that we do, it always takes longer. And I take fault. I'm blame on that too. It always takes longer. And so showcasing that like, hey, if I go and do this, there is some sort of trade-off. Like there is a trade-off of this. And so Megan, I just want to highlight that as like, okay, like even Megan and I had a prioritization meeting yesterday where it's like, hey, I've got to do these product marketing items on this new release. I've got to do, you know, this new messaging revamp and website launch. And she's got all these things going on, but like, there's not enough time to do all of them. So we have to pick and choose what we launch and when we launch it, because otherwise we're going to deliver subpar work.
I come at things. I grew up in marketing in PR and communications. So for me, consistency matters. It's the minute you're sick of talking about something is the minute that it's starting to seed with the rest of the world, with your buyers. And I think we've been talking about the importance of delivering these excellent customer experiences. You get to excellence on the back of consistency, like point blank, full stop, mic drop right there. So.
Yeah. LeBron James and other great athletes have said the key is consistency to being great. So just wanted to point that out. Well, as we wrap up, let's dive into results. So we've talked about the why, we've talked about some misconceptions, we've gone on some rants around culture and human stuff, which I think is really important. And now we've talked about the how, but let's talk about results. Megan, how do we measure results of this alignment, of this communication, of these war rooms that we've put together?
Yes, I think the good thing is that both of these groups, your solutions folks and your product marketers, are really all focused on the same outcomes. They want to help customers. They want to help them see the value. They want them to buy your product and buy more because they love it so much and see value in the new things that you're building. So I think when you're working well together, those metrics will all have a positive impact. They'll be up and to the right. But I think things like win rate and cycle times are very important to be kind of those like the leading indicators of, is this working? Is this not?
And if I can add on that, right, I think, you know, those main ones of like, you know, the win rates and cycles, I like to say like pipeline, stage acceleration, and win rates. Those are really, really important, right? But at the same time, if we take it a little bit step deeper into product usage, and the product data, right? This is, you know, what Megan and I worked on at Showpad, right? And products like Asset Mule, right? When I was at Showpad, we used to, I'll let this cat out of the bag. I told Megan this earlier. I used to tell this story in demos about how a customer created this video and spent all this money on a video and shared it out to their team and prospect, and it was barely ever used, right? It was like a 4-minute video, and of the usage, like 30 or 45 seconds. And so we dug into the analytics to figure out, you know, what didn't work and what, you know, did work from an asset perspective and where they should change their strategy. That story was actually about our company. Like, that was about Showpad. I didn't tell anybody that, right? But in the demo story, it was a real life story. And so I think, you know, that this is where like data analytics, you know, kind of they do come into play of like what's being utilized with internal stakeholders, what's being sent out, how's it resonating with buyers? Are those case studies? Are those videos? Are those testimonials? What type of type of content is resonating? And I just think that those types of analytics can't be ignored. And although we want to always talk about the high level on pipeline and acceleration and velocity and win rates, I think if we like unpack the covers, right, that data usage is really, really helpful. That when Megan and I know that we've got to create 8 assets in the next quarter, like what are we going to create and why are we going to create it?
Awesome. Megan, anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up today?
I think just remember we're all here for the same reason, like just sling some software and deliver these amazing customer experiences. So we're all in this together.
Absolutely. The drum roll there.
Yes.
Well,
Totally.
Folks, thank you. First of all, James, Megan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I know how busy y'all are, which is an awesome thing. And I'm not shocked that TestBox is crushing it. And for the folks out there, if you're a go-to-market team, pre-sales professional, or I know that there are other functions within an organization based on that organization's composition that are looking at demo and demo automation tools, definitely check out TestBox. Give it a shot. You'll be happy. I'm of course biased because I was in the space and I was feel again a strong affinity, but for me it's one of those things where it's a must have and it's part of that go-to-market stack. For the folks who have taken the time to hang out with us today, thank you so much. We know that you're super busy, so we really appreciate that. A couple things. James, if folks wanted to, let's say, get in contact with you, I know I sort of mentioned where TestBox can be accessed or where folks can go to find out more, but maybe you can give some URLs or channels.
Actually, James, you're going to take this?
Go ahead. You can go, Megan.
I would say if you're looking to even explore more about the demo automation space or interested in learning more about TestBox specifically, check us out on LinkedIn, but also our website, testbox.com. I think also I would follow James because he's not going to say this himself, as well as our CEO, Sam Senior. They're both doing a lot of talking and just educating. The demo automation space is kind of fragmented. There's a lot going on, and it's kind of confusing, especially as it's a new space that's really taking off. So I think both of them have been doing a great job just sharing insights, things that they're hearing from our conversations with our customers, buyers, etc. So if you're looking to learn more, go follow James and Sam.
Thanks, Megan. And I will say Megan's done an amazing job with our social. We also want to share our best practices, right? Some of the things we talked about today, we think that there's a new wave of go-to-market, and we are trying to lead from that organizationally, from the front. That's always been, my leadership style. So we're going to continue to do that here. And I think the one thing about the demo automation space that I want to mention, I had a conversation with someone today who's like really deep, even as a consulting company in demo automation. And we are doing something that is drastically different than anything out there. And I've been told so many times, James, you're right. There's nothing like this in the market. And so, one of the reasons why I came to TestBox, one of the reasons I came to the demo automation space is to help bring clarity to buyers and help educate the space. And so reach out to me, reach out to TestBox, whether you're in the market or not. I'm happy to educate and give my point of view and even showcase my ebook that I wrote last September on state of demo automation, just bring more clarity into these tools and the power of these tools. So these products can do a lot. And it's good to understand the pros and cons of each, including our own at TestBox.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. For the folks out there, if you want to check out Asset Mule 2 and figure out how you can take your sales enablement content to the next level, check it out. It's free to sign up. You can go to assetmule.ai and we have a free plan that's free forever, hopefully. Yeah, and it will be. It will be. Right?
It's a great product. I've used it. I've even created some TestBox assets with it. So it's a great product. Good job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks for your support also and insight along this journey. Folks, again, without further ado, we'll go ahead and wrap up here today. Really appreciate your time. Follow TestBox and Asset Mule on LinkedIn. Tremendous content. Again, follow Megan, follow James, follow Sam, follow my co-founder, Justin. I'll go ahead and post a bunch of links here, tag a bunch of folks. Justin, my co-founders, CEO, former product marketers, always posting about product marketing. So without further ado, have a wonderful, wonderful day, everyone.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, George. Thanks, Megan.
Bye, guys.